They come back to me and they said, yes, ma'am, the VIN number, they read it back to me. And I'm like, yes, we do have it here, but I'm sorry to tell you, it's the electric one. And
Right.
we didn't mean to buy it. They bought it in a lot at an auction, and they apologized to me, and they're like, well, we're really sorry. And I said, no, that's the car I've been waiting for.
In March, I officially had my EV for 1 year. By buying electrons from the grid instead of buying gas at the pump, I've saved about $1,000. And it hasn't been to the shop except for its inspection, which is also cheaper for EVs because of no emissions. And I saved 10% on my Easy Pass with the green discount plan. It's been great. While EVs might not yet be for everyone, the pool of people it makes sense for is rapidly expanding. This is Plugging In. I'm Barry Wygel. Welcome to Plugging In, powering our way to a brighter and healthier New York. I'm your host, Barry Wygel. Each episode on this podcast, we will discuss a different topic related to clean energy, explaining complex topics in a way you can understand. Become part of the community as we help to make a brighter and healthier New York.
As the sun crests on the horizon, a new day dawns in our state. A new hope for tomorrow is rising, a clean future we create. Tomorrow we breathe easier, tomorrow the skies are clear. Today we are plugging in, the future of New York is here.
Joining us on this episode is Kate Kruk. Kate is the Partner and Engagement Director at Wygel and also the President of the New York chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association and is on their national board. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Barry, it's so great to finally be able to connect with you. I'm so glad that our schedules aligned. Looking forward to this conversation.
This is one we've been trying to do for a while, so this is
so
excellent.
Long.
So give me a little bit about your professional history. How'd you get involved in the EV and EV charging space?
My very first EV was a Chevy Spark electric vehicle, 100% electric vehicle, that I purchased in 2015.
Yeah,
so almost
wow.
a decade of EV driving. And ironically, it was the pushback and the inquiries that I got almost a decade ago from everyone, from my family to my friends, about our family's decision to buy an affordable electric vehicle, something that didn't run on gasoline. It led me to connect with my local EV Drivers Club, which at that point back in 2015, there was maybe 15, 20 of us. So it was a pretty exclusive club, but
right.
A club nonetheless, because we all kind of gathered together to talk about, like, why is this so different? Why is everybody kind of curious and not always in such a positive way? So my husband and I started going to car shows, which led me to arrange some EV show and tells at my kids' school, because I felt like I had to tell people what they were missing out on. Like, it just was something that was so ingrained once we got this vehicle. Like, I have to tell more people. And from there, I took the reins with hosting the National Drive Electric Week in Schenectady. So the EV club that I was part of was looking for new blood to take over the event. And with my background, I used to be an event director. So I was like, it's just made to happen. So I got to actually drive Electric Week here in Schenectady, New York, with my dream team of advocates. That was back in 2019. And then eventually I formed my own chapter of the National Electric Vehicle Association, as you mentioned, the New York Capital District EVA, which is more promoting education and advocacy, something that it's just part of my world. And then a year later, I was asked to consider a seat on the board of directors with the National Electric EVA, where I've been serving for almost 3 years now. And then, meanwhile, in my spare time, I work full-time as the partner and engagement director with Wygel, which is essentially my dream job. Part of the conversation that I had so long ago was the lack of EV infrastructure was a barrier to adoption. So Wygel, we are an energy infrastructure development company. We're focused on renewable energy and fueling technologies. And what that really means is I can build charging stations and get them in the ground. So actually doing something about that barrier makes me so excited to go to work every day. So when people say there's not enough EV infrastructure, I'd love to raise my hand and say, well, I got it, girl. let me help you build the infrastructure that's right for your location, which ultimately leads to adoption of electric vehicles. So that's the 5-minute elevator speech. It was kind of those weird transitions of how you get to be in the career and the role that you play. It's a lot of different steps and a lot of different pivots and paths in the road, but I get to enjoy what I do every day.
That's awesome. So what made you consider that EV Spark 10 years ago?
If you've heard me tell the story, some people are probably sick of it. 10 years ago, my life was a little bit different. I had 3 young children, no dollars, like a lot of young folks, just bought a house, was trying to limit our family's expenses and realized, where can we cut? And transportation was a big one. So not having a car payment, not having to pay for gasoline was something that was an idea that we came up with. And I had actually read an article 2 years before, ironically, about the Chevy Spark electric vehicle coming to market. I think it was back in 2013. I was like, this is genius. The car was estimated to be about $15,000, got 90 miles of range, and I'm looking at my 3 beautiful boys across my table, and I'm like, all I do is go to work and drive them to school and activities. Where am I really going? Why would I need to spend extra money on a vehicle? So I called around and I looked and I found out that car wasn't even available in New York. It was a California compliance vehicle, and I was just desperate to have it. I was like, why can't everybody have this? There's got to be other people like me who just need reliable transportation and do not want to go into debt for it. So I set up a Google alert on my computer, and one day it popped up. Ironically, again, it's like the stars aligned right when my husband's car was dying. And the Google alert popped up that the EV Chevy Spark was in New Jersey at a car dealership. So I called them up and I said, I think you have the car I want. It's a Chevy Spark EV. And the dealer was like, well, let me go check the lot. Sometimes it's different what's on the website versus what's on the lot. And they come back to me and they said, yes, ma'am, the VIN number, they read it back to me. And they're like, yes, we do have it here, but I'm sorry to tell you, it's the electric one. And we didn't mean to buy it. They bought it in a lot at an auction, and they apologized to me, and they're like, well, we're really sorry. And I said, no, that's the car I've been waiting for, and it was 3 hours away in New Jersey. So I took the day off of work the next day, and we traveled down to try it out. My husband was not particularly thrilled. He was a 5-speed. He always wanted to drive a manual transmission, and to get him, I'm like, well, we're just going to try it. We don't have to buy it, but let's give it a try. And it was this tiny little roller skate of a vehicle in powder blue. And when we test drove it, he peeped the tires driving out of the dealership just to test drive it, because the torque on that vehicle was so amazing. And it was sewn up in about 5 minutes. He's like, wrap it up, let's go.
Wow.
So we got it for under $15,000, and then got a $7,500 tax rebate because it was new.
Yep.
So no brainer. It's a fabulous vehicle. It had instant torque, got us where we needed to go, was paid off in a reasonable amount of time. And up until a few years ago, it was still on the road. And not because of a battery degradation, it was because the salt in upstate New York ruined the undercarriage when we gave it to our 16-year-old to drive. So it was on the road for 8+ years, and our teenage son never learned to drive a gas car. He's never driven a gas car ever.
That's my goal for my daughter, too, to never pump gas. Yeah.
And I think that story hopefully is going to be more people's story, that second generation vehicle is going to be that used car, that car that gets our younger generation to use this technology. And he loves it. And he doesn't know any different. So
let's talk about some of the pros and cons, because there are still some cons out there and lots of pros, which is good. So the reason you bought yours originally was the price, and not just the price of the car, but the operating costs. And that was something that sold me too, was when you actually did that math. And it's it's really hard as advocates because there's no dollar for dollar. There's no miles per gallon because there's no gallon of electrons. Right. So, I did see it quantified in one study, and it said as long as gas is above $1.63, which it has been for a very long time now,
Correct.
It's going to be cheaper to drive that EV. So have you seen over the last 10 years, has that cost savings materialized for you?
Since we're specifically speaking about New York, I still see it much less to drive and operate an electric vehicle. I believe the study says it's still about a third of the cost of a gas vehicle. So you're $1.63, as long as gas is above 163, which we haven't seen those prices in years.
Yep.
Yes, you're still up when it comes to fuel cost. And when it comes to anything else, you just kind of bake it into your operations. So when we first got our car 10 years ago, I was constantly watching the national grid bill to see, because everybody told me, your energy bill is going to go up. And fair, and it did. I think the first thing it went up was $13 maybe. But now I will also talk to that again. Back then, I also had 3 kids that did their own laundry and left their lights on, and did all the typical things that young boys do. Love them. But so it was kind of hard to gauge, what was fueling the vehicle and what was just life. But the average was about $10, $12, which is something that as, a household, you can kind of absorb that and you stop thinking about it. Where I start to think about the costs is when I am traveling, and if I do need to use a fast charger along the thruway corridors, or when I'm traveling, in other areas where you need to get somewhere quicker. And when I go to the fast chargers, I'm always like, and now I have to pay that premium for use of the fast charger option. But when it comes to, in reality, the majority of the time I'm either charging at home overnight or at work, and you don't really think about it.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. So this will be 1 year, will be March 20th of my
Congratulations.
EV. Thank you. And it's been fantastic. And I think I've had the same experience. So I, installed the charger at my home and got the tax credit for that.
Good for you.
And then, and so mostly 98% of the time charging at home. And then when I travel for work, which is thankfully reimbursable, I'm using those fast chargers, which are triple the cost of charging at home. But I still... Yeah, I think based on my rough numbers, I've saved about $1,000 in gas, which is real money back in the pocket, which is awesome.
And that's something that's really important, again, as families consider this type of adoption. Or also, when we're kind of talking about our own use case of, being EV drivers ourselves, but that's something that businesses could recognize those costs too, if they are starting to switch their fleets or if they're swapping vehicles. Same with our school districts or municipalities. Those are real dollars that you're seeing. So it's something to think about, when you're looking for a different vehicle, the fuel economy itself in an electric vehicle is so much better. And those are dollars that now you can put somewhere else. So I always see that as a win. And plus, when you talked about the additional cost of ownership and cost of operation, I will use my Chevy Spark example. I had that car on the road for 8 years and didn't have to put brakes on it until year 8 because of regenerative braking, because of the technology. You're not pressing, you're not using that friction. Not only do you get to recoup miles with something, a gas vehicle will never put gas back in your tank, right? An EV can recoup that energy and add miles and add range to your vehicle. So win there, but also brakes, maintenance, hardly ever.
Right. No oil changes.
No oil changes. I jokingly put a meme out on our EV group the other day. I had to add wiper fluid. So that was some maintenance that I had to do there. Cabin filters, things like that are still going to exist. There's still standard vehicle technology. That's what you find in a fully electric vehicle. But then when we talk on our plug-in hybrids, now that maintenance and that RO, return on investment, and sometimes those fuel economies is going to come down a little bit because you're still maintaining a gas vehicle, an internal combustion engine, as well as your electric components. So that's something I think we can kind of talk about when it comes to operating costs too, and maybe we'll talk about it a little later, is those differences between a 100% electric vehicle versus a plug-in hybrid, because there are cost benefits But there's something for everybody, I think, nowadays in the EV world. Whether you're dipping your toe in and kind of doing the hybrid, the plug-in hybrid option, or if you're going all in like my family did.
Yeah, so let's talk about charging. So we're lucky to be able to charge at home most of the time, and you at work, which is awesome. And then there's, the new ones popping up along the thruway. I'm sure the landscape's a little different than 10 years ago when you first got your car. Talk about a little bit, explaining first what the level of chargers are out there and how available are these chargers?
Sure, and charging is what I get to do every day, so I'm glad that you brought this up. So there's so many acronyms in the EV world that I want to just put it out there. So level 1 charging, or L1 charging, what that really means to everyday consumer is a 120 volt outlet. It's what you plug your computer in, it's what you plug anything, your coffee pot, all of your regular electronics get plugged into your standard 110 home outlet. What a lot of people don't understand is that 110 outlet can charge an electric vehicle. It's just really slow. Mm-hmm. So you can add 3 to 5 miles of range per hour from a 110 outlet. So without any upgrades to your current home, work, business infrastructure, if you have an outlet, you can charge your car. And what the Electric Vehicle Association just put out, I think yesterday, on their Facebook group is a reminder that the average person across the country, not just in New York, I think New York's actually a little less, the average person drives 37 miles a day. So if you sleep for 8 hours and you plug in for a 110 outlet and get 5 miles of range, 8 hours times 5, that's 40 miles of charge without doing anything different. Mm-hmm. You just got to go to bed and plug in your car. And that will get you most of your day's range on just an outlet. Then there's that level 2 charging, which is the 240 volts outlet. So this is something, again, for just standard everyday folks. This is like your dryer outlet. This is something that, you can have in your home, and most people do. They put a 240 in with a dedicated line. These can be also in public locations. So usually 240 outlet is what you see out in public chargers. So what you find at workplaces, out in the community. There's still a slower level of charge. It's still AC charging. So you're still using the same AC charge capacity. That's going to get you about 20 to 60 miles of range in an hour. So now, again, so you charged your overnight in your 110 at your home. You got enough miles to get to work and back, but if you want to top up, if you have a 240 outlet or a L2, level 2 charger at work, you're going to be there for 8 hours for most of us. So in 8 hours, you're getting maybe 50 miles of range. You're well over most of the capacity that you're going to get in your vehicle. So right now, the average EV on the market, pure electric vehicle, gets between 250 and 300 miles of range. So you're good. So you can top off at work once a week, and you don't have to charge again full up until maybe when you get back from the weekend. And then finally, there's the DC fast charger, the L3s or DCFCs. Again, lots of acronyms.
Yes.
So DCFC, DC fast charger, L3, level 3, all the same thing. And this is where we switch to DC power. This is the big player in the game. These are the ones that are located along the highways, and they're in urban centers. They can add up to 100 miles of charge in 30 minutes, sometimes less, depending on your battery capacity. So this is that gas station mentality. This is what I always say to people who are non-EV drivers. This is what everybody thinks we need everywhere. DC fast chargers are absolutely great. I love to use them because I like that instant, you're ready to go. But as we already discussed, you pay a premium for it. The infrastructure can be expensive to put in. They are great, don't get me wrong. Again, but just like the gas pump, you are paying for that premium service. So what's really interesting when you think about a vehicle and the charging infrastructure is you need to make sure that when you are not driving your vehicle is when you are charging your vehicle. That's the best way to operate an electric vehicle. when the car is sitting in the garage overnight, or when it's sitting at a parking lot in a hotel, or when you're grocery shopping, or attending a concert, or a baby shower, or a golf tournament. Those are the times when you're not using your car that you plug it in. Just like your cell phone. Not using it at night, plug it in. Not using it during the workday, plug it in. So matching the dwell time of a user to the charging infrastructure can save time, energy, and money. So it's really important that as we build out the infrastructure to New York, that we are making those matches appropriate and not putting fast chargers in a place where people are going to be for a long time. And on the opposite side, not putting slow chargers where people want to get in and get out. Those choices are going to make a quality experience for an EV driver. And that's going to make it better for everybody to adopt it. And that's something that I'm going to kick it back and do a shameless plug for my team at Linkwell, is that the folks that I get to work with every day are educating people about what kind of infrastructure they want, because it's matching the experience that they want drivers to have. So you can tell me all day, I want to have 50 DCFCs, fast chargers in my parking lot because I have 50 EV drivers. That might not be the best mix for you. Maybe 2 or 4 fast chargers and 20 level 2s are the right mix. So it's really cool, and you want to make sure you have those conversations when you choose what infrastructure you're putting in. And that's not even getting into all the fun that with power and capacity, which is really important to make sure that you're working with your utility companies. New York has great resources with all of the major utilities across the state. There's plenty of resources on each one of their websites to help you choose and make sure that you are going the right way to pick the capacity and the energy that you need to charge your vehicles, especially if you're doing a workplace charging or a larger project.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I got my car, I saw a meme online and it said the ABCs of owning an EV are always be charging.
Always be charging.
Yeah, exactly what you just said.
And so it makes sense. Just plug it in. Right,
exactly. So, who or what makes a good candidate for an EV? Because there are still people that it doesn't make sense for right now, but thankfully that list is getting smaller and smaller as more people, as the chargers roll out and other infrastructure and whatnot. So kind of take me through, who do you think would make a good candidate for a full EV, a plug-in hybrid, or maybe should wait a little bit?
So this is one woman's opinion with some sprinkles in there. I think that most people, if they stop and think about their actual driving habits, can adopt an electric vehicle. Not that it's for everyone. So here's some things that I always tell people to consider. I know what worked for me, and it took a little adjusting, but once you get into any type of pattern or rhythm, you kind of just get used to it. For an EV owner, the best thing, again, homeowners, people who have access to a garage or an outdoor plug, is really going to have that better experience. And for those who drive with it, a reasonable range, as I mentioned before, the average driver drives about 37 miles. What I did when I was considering that Chevy Spark is we really stopped and thought about, what am I doing? Where do I go? And especially for 2-car families, I feel like if you have a gas vehicle as a backup, and you're interested in taking on the challenge of being an EV driver, if you have a gas vehicle at your disposal, then that second vehicle could easily be a BEV, a battery electric vehicle, because you have the best of both worlds. That's what happened in my household, and I will be 100% honest, once we got that Chevy Spark, and I still had my gas car for, I'll be honest, 6 months until I switched to, my husband and I were fighting over who got to take the Spark to work, who got to drive it, because the experience was so much better. So after having that vehicle for only 6 months, I traded in my vehicle and got a Chevy Bolt back at the time. So we ended
and that's
up
what I have now. So
a 2-family, fully electric family at that point, because the experience was just so much better. But there are folks out there where it doesn't quite work yet. So like a plug-in electric vehicle that we talked about, those are ideal for people who want some electric benefits but need that flexibility for longer trips without relying on charging stations. So Plug-in hybrid vehicles, PHEVs, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, have smaller battery capacity. So generally you can maybe get about 40 miles on average on electric charge only. So that does fit into that average driver capacity and that 40 miles a day. So if you're in that range, you can get a lot of your driving done with just a plug-in hybrid vehicle. But I will caution, some folks don't know that DC fast chargers, so that 100 miles in 30 minutes, some people start to think, well, if I get a smaller battery, I can charge it faster if I use a fast charger. The reality is you cannot plug in a PHEV to a DC fast charger. The connectors don't work. They're not made for that because there is no onboard inverter. So plug-in hybrid vehicles today do not accept DC fast charging. So just be aware, if you are looking at that type of vehicle, your only levels to charge it on are that level 2 slower charger and a level 1, which is your 110 outlet. So just be aware that you don't get to split the difference because it's a smaller battery. Those batteries were not designed to take the power of a DC fast charger.
That makes sense.
Now, if you drive a lot, if you don't like waiting, if you don't have a place to charge, or you frequently drive those long distances, now might not be the time for you. But if you just honestly take a look at your driving patterns, I would almost guarantee that there's a way that you could make it work if you wanted to switch to some kind of battery electric vehicle. But, long trips, if that's something you do all the time and you don't have time to stop for 30 minutes, which I know my family, my boys would never take it that long, go on a long trip without stopping at some point, it might not be the right time for you. But I challenge folks to really take a look at what their driving habits are and see if they fit into one of those categories.
And the exciting thing is that the cars just keep getting better. So, next year's versions of the EVs are going to be so much more range and everything else and stuff that you see in testing and whatnot. It's only going to get better, which is exciting.
I mean, New York ingenuity as well as American ingenuity is constantly evolving the technology that can extend the range of batteries, that can extend your usage. It's a great time to get in. Again, when my first vehicle had 90 miles of charge, when I bought my bolts, it went up to 200 miles. The second bolt that I leased was 250 miles. My Kia EV6 that I drive now gets 310 miles, and I get around 200 miles of charge in my husband's Ford Lightning base model vehicle, base model truck. It's about 260 miles of range. It's constantly, in the past 10 years, the range has almost tripled. In some instances, and it's like you said, it's only getting better. Everybody kind of comes back to the what do I do for long trips? That was one of the big things that I used to get back when we purchased our first vehicles. And once again, if you look at the average, I think the AAA said 250 miles plus. Americans are doing that twice a year, I believe was the average. So when you're looking at those long trips as a rationale to not adopt an EV vehicle, again, stop and think, how often do I drive those long ranges? Am I even driving them? Am I taking a train? Am I flying? Even your long trips might not be in a vehicle. So again, think about it and don't use it as the excuse to limit your choices of vehicle. Think of it as an opportunity to kind of reassess.
Yes. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the tax credits. You've used these in the past, especially on your first Spark. You mentioned you got $7,500 back. I used it on the used EV car, which was an Inflation Reduction Act benefit. But obviously, things are a little crazy right now, and we don't know what's happening, especially at the federal level. So, how should people take that into account when they're looking at making this switch?
As you mentioned, when it comes to the federal tax credits, things might be in flux at the moment. So right now, they are currently still in play. What I would highly suggest to anybody thinking about making the switch is Plug-in America has a great link on their homepage that is following the tax credit right now and pretty much in real time. So if you're moving forward with the purchase of a vehicle, I would just double check there daily. Things are changing daily right now. So just, take a look at it to make sure that you're actioning the opportunities that are out there at the moment. We always knew that the federal tax credits may or may not be there for a long haul. The goal of the federal tax credits was to help create parity between an ICE vehicle, an internal combustion vehicle, and an electric vehicle. And as awesome as the $7,500 rebate is now electric vehicles are starting to come down in price where they already are in parity. So while it's very disappointing that folks may or may not be able to take advantage of that $7,500 new vehicle credit, the cars themselves are already coming down in price. So it's there. I think it helped to do what it was supposed to do. Would I prefer that it stayed for the next several years now that the conversations are becoming bigger about people adopting EVs? Yes. But right now, the good thing is that $7,500 tax rebate is available. It still follows the 2024 change where you can take that credit at the time of purchase for new vehicles, but there are limitations to what vehicles apply to that tax credit. The battery, where the battery materials are sourced, where the creation of the vehicle is, so if it's an American vehicle. So please, before you think that you're gonna get that credit, I said, go over to Plug-in America's homepage, take a look at it, see if the vehicle that you're looking to purchase is there, and then move forward and utilize that tax credit. What I would say to anybody is, if you're purchasing, make sure that your vehicle dealer is registered with the IRS. It takes minutes for them to do that process so that you can take the credit at time of purchase, so you don't have to wait till you file your tax return, which is how it was in 2023 and before. So seize the opportunity and then take it immediately would be my recommendation. In New York State, there is still a $2,000 tax credit for new vehicles as well, and you can stack it currently. You can stack that with the federal rebate. And additionally, as you mentioned, there's currently a federal rebate of $4,000 on used electric vehicles. However, it does have to be the first. You can only get that once, so you can't keep selling the vehicle. So again, check with your dealer who's selling that used vehicle to make sure that that particular vehicle you're purchasing has not been resold and the tax credit applied to that vehicle. It's attached to the VIN number of the car. So again, buyer beware. Always do your homework and just make sure that it does apply before you take that credit or realize that you can take the credit. So again, highly, highly recommend looking at Plug-in America's website. It's just pluginamerica.org and see what's available to you.
Kate, anything else we should talk about?
Oh, there's so many things to talk about. So my thoughts about how you can make the switch and understand some of the nuances and understand electric vehicles for yourself. I will love to see more people try your electric vehicle. So you can't knock it until you try it. The best thing that you can do to consider if an electric vehicle is right for you is to try it out. You can also participate in National Drive Electric Week, which is now National Drive Electric Month, which runs from September 12th to October 12th. Anybody who's in the New York capital region who might be listening to this, Schenectady, New York has been the #1 Drive Electric Week event in the entire USA for 3 years in a row. We need to make it 4, so come on out and you can actually see what is being developed here in Schenectady. So Linkwell, the team who is doing electric vehicle charging infrastructure, hardware and software, sponsors that event. The software's out there, the hardware's out there. You can see different types of EV chargers and actually get to talk to EV drivers and also do ride and drive. So you can get behind the wheel, really experience it for yourself.
Awesome.
And hopefully we'll see you and your listeners at one of the great events throughout the state. People, make sure that you register, show that you're there, you're supportive of e-mobility initiatives. So to make sure when these events go out and online that you are registering and showing your support.
Perfect. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Plugging In. I hope you learned something, and I hope you share this knowledge with someone else. It would be incredibly helpful if you leave us a 5-star review wherever you found this podcast. If there's a topic you would like us to cover in the future, or have a question about clean energy, send us an email at podcast@aceny.org. You can follow us on social media using the links in the show notes, or consider joining our Clean Energy Supporters mailing list at aceny.org/support. Your support is crucial to creating a brighter and healthier New York. I'll see you next time.
As the sun crests on the horizon, a new day dawns in our state. A new hope for tomorrow is rising, a clean future we create. Tomorrow we breathe easier, tomorrow the skies are clear. Today we are plugging in.